Hello and welcome to the Candidates Forum for Los Angeles County Sheriff, brought to you by SCVTV, KHTS AM-1220, the Signal newspaper, and COC Cougar News.
My name is Bob Olmsted. I retired from the Sheriff's Department 3 years ago. I retired at the height of the turmoil and malfeasance that was occurring on the department. I had the integrity at the time that when I did retire, I came back after my wife's death for one last day to tell Lee Baca all the problems that were going on within the organization, the beating of inmates needlessly, the civil rights violation. He turned a blind eye. I gave him one more chance. About a month later, he still didn't do anything. At that point, I had to report the corruption, and I went to the FBI and LA Times. As a result, what we've seen now is the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence has come out and has recommendations, 63 of them as a matter of fact, to go ahead and talk about all the problems that were occurring on the jail, which validates some of the significant issues that I brought up at the time. Lee Baca stepped down prematurely as well. There's some significant changes that have occurred, and I'm glad I was able to do it the right way. If you want a true reformer, I'm the person who's going to come and go to bat for you. I had the courage, the integrity, and fortitude to take on the organization when it wasn't proper, when it wasn't the right thing to do, and I will do it again as Sheriff for LA County. With that in mind, my name is Bob Olmsted, and please vote for me. Thank you.
In light of the recent concerns that have plagued the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Leroy Baca's early retirement, what do you do to restore public confidence for those who are concerned about the department?
I think part of the problem is, which led up to all this, is the leadership. It was a catastrophic failure of leadership on the LA County Sheriff's Department. 99% of the men and women on this department are just good, hard-working people, and it's the leadership that failed them. And if you go back and take a look at the last three and a half years of all the turmoil, malfeasance, corruption, hiring practices, pattern of practice, moving the inmates, jailhouse abuses, you're going to see that this crosses a wide divisional boundaries on the LA County Sheriff's Department. And I have to ask, none of this occurred in a void. None of it in a vacuum. At some point, some executives in our department, our command staff, knew exactly what was going on, and I call it supervisory paralysis or supervisory cowardice. And at that particular point, I'm just going to have to vet out and talk to every command staff and identify what some of the issues are, what was taken, what was not being done, and identify a good command staff that's going to have my mission, my core values to change the internal culture of this organization. Thank you.
The next question is, how much oversight is too much as far as civilian involvement and intervention from the political arena?
The difficulty with this particular question is the fact that we've lost the public trust. It's just not there. If we'd had leadership that had taken responsibility and accountability for our actions as the organization, we wouldn't be where we're at now. I was the first to come out and support Mark Ridley Thomas and Gloria Molina's Civilian Oversight Committee. I think it's absolutely critical. But I offered up to Mark, and I said we need to change it just and make it a little bit different than what you have right now. I would encourage a retired judge to have a pool of applicants that are retired judges, attorneys, and prominent citizens in the community. And then have the Board of Supervisors and the Sheriff's Department pick a total of 9 people out of that pool of applicants. And then out of that pool, we have a supermajority. And that supermajority would be 6 or 9 that would have to come up with a recommendation to the sheriff. And then the sheriff would be beholden to go ahead and approve exactly what was recommended at that particular point based on a supermajority. So I think it can work very easily.
There have been mixed reviews for education-based programs offered by the Sheriff's Department. What do you think of such programs, and how would you work to make them more effective?
Education-based incarceration is absolutely critical. And I see that from the standpoint as I've taught college for over 20 years, high school, and the Explorer programs. I know how much education is dealing with individuals from a perspective of learning. The sad part is the average education level for a male adult in Men's Central Jail is about 5th grade. Education is absolutely critical. Go ahead and prevent that. I would continue that. However, we need to build a ROI, return on investment, into the program. Using scarce resources needs to be validated to show that we're doing it the best way and with feedback. But the sad part of all this, on the front end of the equation, is the fact of our STAR program, which is where we educate the students in high school and in grade school how to stay out of gangs, how to stay off drugs, how to get out and stay out of peer pressure, has been neglected and decimated by 75%. It used to be $2.5 million, is now it's only $500,000, from 39 down to 9 deputies. We need to do more on the front end too.
As was previously mentioned, AB 109 has been roundly criticized by law enforcement officials. How would you lower the recidivism rate?
AB 109 is going to be absolutely critical, and I say that from a standpoint that's already been predicted, that in 4 years from now we're going to have 10,000 more inmates in the state system than we do right now. That being said, 40% of those are going to go right through Men's Central Jail, and we're going to have some significant overcrowding, exactly like we have now. The failure of AB 109 is that each county is implementing AB 109 in a different manner. And there's a success rate with AB 109 and best practices, which talks about split sentencing, of which we don't do as effectively as we should. The average rate of split sentencing in the state is about 35 to 40%, and we in LA County are doing less than 5%. Split sentencing will allow not only the inmate to be sentenced, but allow them to go through a rehabilitative process where they would then be released and be mandated where they go through counseling, anger management, domestic violence classes, et cetera, put on by the community. And that's what we need to do, is go back and take a look at the split sentencing, increase that from a standpoint of reducing recidivism.
The city of Santa Clarita is the sheriff's largest contract city. When the city of Santa Clarita funds a higher level of police services than does the county in the unincorporated areas, how do you ensure that police services in the unincorporated areas of the Santa Clarita Valley stay comparable?
I think the critical aspect of this, of what we're talking about here, is holding my captains responsible and accountable for the particular patrol areas that they're assigned to. That being said, this is just not an issue for up here in this particular city, but it's in all the cities. We used to do that. We don't do that anymore. We used to have a thing called SCIF, Sheriff's Critical Information Forum. It was a model after Olmsted out of New York. And we would meet quarterly, and the sheriff would hold the station captains and commanders responsible for contract minutes, for arrest rates, for problem areas in their particular area, for busting cars, whatever the issue might be. That being said, that's how you hold them responsible and hold the captains responsible. We don't have SCIF anymore. I'm going to have to go back and reinstitute the concept that the captains at the various stations need to be responsible for the patrol areas in which they patrol. Part of the problem is we've been carping, and that's just an acronym on our department which says we're stealing resources from one to pay for another. And that's unacceptable. And by doing so, we've been busting cars in the unincorporated areas constantly to try and make the needs of the contract cities. That's unacceptable. That would all be part of my that would be all part of my SCIF program, holding station captains accountable and responsible for their constituents in their patrol area.
DUI and driver's license checkpoints that are stationed by deputies throughout Los Angeles County are supported with federal money. Why do you think these checkpoints are the best way to educate the public about the dangers of driving under the influence, and do you think there's an alternative way that might prove more effective? I
don't think you can get much of an argument from anybody on the panel on this one. DUIs are absolutely critical. They devastate families. I've seen it. It's unacceptable. However, being an educator for a good majority of my life, I know how important education is in the entire process too. You just can't be punitive by nature. You're going to have a front-end education program as well. And I agree. Yeah, it's going to have to be in the schools. It's going to have to go to the families, billboards. Again, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, all the others that are out there to be able to help educate the importance of not imbibing to a point where you're intoxicated and create dangers, not only yourself, but to the community at large. And that's the sad part. Generally, the DUI does more damage and devastation to the victims that they hit than generally themselves, and that's the sad part of this whole equation. I would continue with the DUI checkpoints. I think it's absolutely critical, but I think it's got to be a balanced approach, like everything else in life, and on how we attack these issues.
If you had to choose between budget cuts for patrols versus for jail service, how would you make that determination?
You know, again, I think it's a balanced approach, whether it's a custody environment or patrol. We're going to have to sit and weigh the imperatives of the critical process of what need to be done. They are both mandates that were mandated constitutionally to do: patrol, custody, courts, and transportation. So I think it's going to have to be a balanced approach on the imperatives of how we want to address this. We need to maintain a safe and secure jail, and at the same time we need to do public safety. I think one of the biggest things I can do, though, from the patrol end side, though, is increase our reserve component. We only have about 800 reserves right now. As a matter of fact, the department is eliminating a lot of our reserves on the department. I need to increase it then to at least 1,600 by having more reserves out there, by able to utilize other resources, by able to use commitments from the community. I think I might be able to shore up the patrol end at the same time being able to secure the jail component.
Thank you. Nice job, everybody. Tough decision, tough issues, tough decision for voters to make on June 3rd. But I'd like to thank the candidates who are with us today for joining us: Bob Olmsted, Todd Rogers, Jim McDonald, Paul Tanaka, and James Helmold. I'd like to thank our panel of journalists from COC Cougar News: Taylor Villanueva, from AM-1220 KHTS, Perry Smith, and from the Signal newspaper, Luke Money. I'm Leon Warden, reminding you to vote on June 3rd.